we had our sit down with EMS as a result of the buyout of the Stewart system. It's questions that we were concerned of. Units having to go all the way up to Jackson North, units having to go all the way to Jackson South, et cetera. So,
You, Chief. My other question is, I know your department has high water rescue capabilities,
yes.
but they're kind of far from our municipality. And with global sea level rise, flooding being a major issue here in Biscayne Park, is your department planning on expanding on those capabilities? I know last summer we had a need for high water rescue here in the village, and we didn't get that service. So is that a priority of your department to expand on those services as well?
So whenever we have a storm, or if we're expecting a significant amount of rain to be dropped in a specific amount of time, we do deploy our resources. We place them in the northeast sector, we place them in the north sector, and we place them in the south sector. When the response or when the call comes in, the unit is dispatched. Now, just because there's a concern of some flooding, and we've had the calls where somebody, we get to a call and it's not necessarily a call for flooding, but because it's, water that's coming up to their doorway, it doesn't necessarily require high axle water vehicles. Our fire trucks, our rescue trucks can continue to respond. So when does it become an issue? Well, when the water is above, the wheel well, as you may know. So though we don't experience that often, but when we do, we deploy the apparatuses, strategically. I know for a fact that one of the units was deployed or staged at Station 19, which is off of 7th Avenue. And again, when the unit is, required, the unit starts heading towards the closest location. We did pick up an additional 2 units from the Army surplus that we are converting. And actually, I believe they finished converting them this or last month. So we should have a total of now, I believe, 5 high axle water vehicles that could be deployed, throughout the county. But again, just because there's water, that comes up to a resident's home doesn't necessarily, mean that it is a high axle water vehicle response. So.
Thank you, Chief. My last question is with firefighter mental health and PTSD on the rise, and the new state of Florida House bill that was just signed into law by Governor DeSantis, is your department going to be moving towards a rotating RDA schedule or a 24 on, 72 off schedule? Is that something you guys going to be looking into?
So I know that part of the collective bargaining agreement is something that we have to actually sit down and review with the local. So the 24 hours, 72, for those who may not realize, we work 24 hours straight with a 48-hour off schedule. The state legislator passed that, all departments should look into the 24/72. So reducing the work week from a 48-hour work week to a 42-hour work week. Again, there's a lot of factors that go into this, including, funding, budget-wise. It is something that we are scheduled to sit down with the local as part of the collective bargaining agreement at the end of the month. But I have to say that in regards to our mental health, mental well-being, behavioral health, there are many avenues or many projects that have been put into place. We work with, the local and state and federal, or not federal, but national IFF. And I have to say that there are a lot of programs, a lot of opportunities for our own personnel and throughout South Florida that could reach out for services through our department or through the local. But again, specifically to the schedule, that's going to be a multi-year, project if it does go into fruition.
Thank you, Chief. It's good to hear that you're going to sit down with the local. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so having concluded 5A, let's move on to 5B, which is our presentation for the Police Chief Selection Committee. I believe Howard is here with us. You have the floor.
So, Mr. Mayor, as Mr. Goldman's coming to the podium, I would just like to thank him for being our chair of the Police Chief Selection Committee. Him and 3 other residents had volunteered, and Bob Anderson being one of them is here tonight. But Mr. Goldman's going to give an overview of the process, and then we have 2 candidates in the log cabin tonight. We're going to ask them to each make a 5-minute presentation, and while one of them's giving the presentation, the other step out of the cabin, and then also we'll have one on Zoom, and then we'll put him in a chat room, I guess, until we're ready for him, so that it'd be independent presentations. But once again, thank you, Mr. Goldman, for being here and committing your time and effort to make it, ensuring this process was fair and transparent. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that, Mr. Manager. First of all, good evening, everybody. Residents, can you hear me there?
There we go. Maybe just, yeah,
There, hopefully that's a little better.
that's better.
So I was asked to come in and give you a recap of what took place and as we were brought in. So in mentioning their names, I'd also like to thank my fellow members of the board of the commission, which were Coral Gables Police Chief Ed Hudak, North Bay Village Deputy Chief of Police Sam Behar, BP Resident Bob Anderson, BP Resident Trish Walker, Resident Joseph Rashay, and myself. Thank you all for your time as well. It was a pleasure working with all of you, and it made it more interesting and fun than work. So it was terrific. We had originally had 20 potential candidates for us to review. We were tasked with reviewing the resumes of the 20. We narrowed that down to a final 7, 2 of which had dropped out for their own reasons and what have you, which left us with 5 candidates. We interviewed those 5, and of those 5, we narrowed it down to final 3, which were Carlos Avila, Scott Israel, and Dale Engel. Those 3 have been left with our village manager to make the decision and for you all to meet as well, hopefully. And we feel very happy with those 3 candidates, that any one of them could be a great addition to the village. Do you have any questions for me?
I do have one. So I certainly echo the sentiment of the manager that we appreciate your time in chairing this board and all of our residents who were part of it and all the folks that were part of that board, because it's helpful to have kind of this independent process through this board. So it's helpful, and I'm glad to see it that this is not your first time here presenting this to us. So it's been transparent, and I appreciate that. I do have one question. When you say we interviewed the candidates, how did that work? Was that like as a board, or was it with each individual person on the board spending individual time with each of those candidates?
It's a good question. It was a conversation and a growing conversation amongst us that brought about questions that we all put together. We came together with, reviewed those questions with the professionals that were with us, the chief and the deputy chief, who helped us quite a lot along the way. And then we brought those questions to one another, all agreed on the final questions. Through the process of interview of the 5, we just went right down the line of each individual, each of us were asking the same question, of the same questions, and then just going along the lines of each and every one of us continue, so that within that questioning period, it didn't seem like one person was asking the question where the candidate would be looking solely at the one individual who was asking the question.
I think that makes sense.
I hope so. Did I do that?
That's helpful. I appreciate that.
Sure.
Can I just kind of understand your thought process on this specific point? How important was it to you as the chair of this board to have the active police presence through the presence of the chief and the deputy chief in assisting you through the process? How would you categorize their involvement and their help? I know you mentioned that they were very helpful pretty significantly, but just kind of want to hear it from you in your own words, how significant it was to have them a part of this process.
I thought it was most important. It brought a lot of insight. It helped us to understand not only what from the perspective from another police chief's perspective in their eyes, but also it allowed us some more insight into the interviewing process of a candidate for police chief through their eyes who've been through this process before. So that was extremely helpful, and I would recommend it for sure going forward. Any time you have to do another kind of a vote like that, bring the professional in of that level, whether it's fire, whether it's whatever service it might be, bring some of the top people in, they can help. They were terrific.
And That's helpful. Thank you. And does the board have a consensus or a position on, let me ask, sorry, let me back up one step. When did this start? When did the process start? How long has the board been kind of vetting these candidates? It doesn't need to be precise.
I would say that I was first contacted in the beginning of April,
Okay.
and we had a couple of Zoom calls. And then after the Zoom calls, we had our meeting to discuss the candidates. And then we came into to Village Hall and met with the candidates. So we're now into July. So it's been a good 3-month process.
Okay. Does the board have a position or consensus or anything, any type of direction on where this process will go from here?
In terms of what?
In terms of, we'll be speaking with these candidates. I mean, is there an idea to have them meet members of the public? Are there any firm dates from this date going forward that the board would recommend as far as kind of vetting and interviewing the candidates
I
remaining?
think that that's a village manager question. He can answer that better for you. We look forward to the opportunity of having the village residents have a meet and greet. It's something that came up in the meetings and something that the village manager was strongly considering. What he's come to with that conclusion, I don't know.
Perfect. Howard, thank you so much. I'm going
Thank
to
you.
ask the commission if they have any questions for you. Thank you.
I have a question.
Oh.
Hey, Howard.
Hey.
Without stating any data, have you guys determined a kind of priority list of who you would like to personally see without obviously
I
was
think
elected?
we all came to a pretty good understanding and agreement amongst ourselves,
Mhm.
whom we thought in what order would probably best serve the community.
Okay.
But in fairness to the village manager, we did not want to put him in a position to have that pressure to consider what we had thought.
But there is kind of a consensus within the group.
I'd say we got to about 90% of that.
Thank you. That's all.
First, Howard, I just want to say thank you to you and your committee. I don't really have any other questions. I just want to say thank you. It's great to see resident involvement in this. I think this was a open, transparent, and a thorough process. And I'm just glad we took this road this time. And I'm glad to see it.
Thank
Thank
you. I think I speak for all of us in saying that we all took great pleasure in being a part of this. We all got along quite well, surprisingly. Didn't have any drama moments at all. And I think we all felt very proud at the end of it to be a part of it. So thank you very much for the opportunity.
I just want to thank you for coming. My only question that I have was these meetings public? I mean, was it private? Could residents have come to these meetings, or was,
I believe that they were private meetings,
I mean,
that when the time was right and the village manager feels that it's right, that's when I think he was considering the opportunity for the meet and greet for others to be involved.
okay, thank you.
That's a,
So I apologize. I don't want to interject, but we're going to have a public comment section if you want to come up and you want to ask the question at that time, or you can ask, I think I'm sure you can ask Howard. I'm sure Howard would be, I don't want to speak for you, Howard, but I'm sure Howard would be happy to answer that question for you private. No, it's okay. No problem. I appreciate it. Howard, thanks so much. I think we have our candidates here with us, Mr. Manager, so we're going to give them a couple of minutes if they want to come up and address the commission. So again, Howard, thank you. And thank you to our board.
Thank you, Howard. And just to, Mayor, just to clarify, so we had 2 days of interviews. The interviews took place in the log cabin. That occurred on June 19th and June 20th. You know, we were, the committee had their schedule, the candidates had their schedule, so we're trying to make sure that we comply with everybody's schedule. As you had asked, we're going to, in my manager report, I'm going to report that we're going to have a meet and greet for the committee, for the community on July 19th at the Parks and Recreation facility. Issa's setting that up for coffee and donuts for, in the morning, with each of the three candidates. So now if I could, we'll, if I could call up, the first candidate, Carlos Avila, and then if Mr. Israel could step out, and then we could put, Mr. Engel into into a room, or have to log off and then come back in. Okay,
Okay, so we're sequestered then?
yes.
Okay. Sir?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Vice Mayor, Commission. Once again, my name is Carlos Avila. I'm 62 years of age. I've been in law enforcement for over 44 years. I began my career as a law enforcement officer in the city of Miami in 1981. I progressed in my career as a patrol officer. I was then a motorcycle officer. And then from there, I went to homicide, where I spent 20 years in the homicide unit investigating major homicide incidents. After that, I was elected unopposed to go to the union, and I went to the FOP as a vice president, and I served there for 6 years. After that, I was promoted to a senior executive assistant to the chief of police, and I was there until I retired in 2011. The reason for my retirement is I took a position as second in command of the West Miami Police Department. I served at the city of West Miami for 14 years, 4.5 of which I served as the chief of police and retired again in 2024, July of 2024. I'm in an awkward situation here because I'm already working here for the department. I was contacted and asked to consider coming as the second in command here to assist in a situation that was here where there was a change in chiefs and the experience was lacking. And so I accepted the challenge after a lot of thinking. I had already heard about the village, and I decided to accept it as a challenge. I know that there was some personnel issues and some other administrative issues that were going on here. And like I said, I accepted it as a challenge. I think that I could do some good and fix the problems that were here. And what I immediately noticed after coming to work here is that my mere presence alone, based on what I was able to see, the personnel issues weren't here. You have a great group of people here working in the village, really good policemen. Policemen will do what they're allowed to do. They're allowed to do things that aren't kosher per se. Well, they'll do it because they're like kids. They have to be led. So, having said that, what I can speak about is what I have been able to accomplish in the short period that I've been here from an administrative standpoint. Okay. The first thing that I noticed is that we had a really serious problem with the equitable sharing program, and that is the task force funds that are recovered with seizures through an agent that we assigned to the federal government, working for us, working for the village. None of the audits had been done. None of the checks and balances that you have to do to make sure the money's coming in. And as a matter of fact, they were going to basically shut us down. So we were able to go ahead and get those audits done. They were approved, and we're back in check, and we're looking at close to about $400,000 that we should be getting at some time when the federal government decides to release it. The off-duty employment policy. Policemen were obviously working off duty. They've been working off duty for years, for at least since 2017 that I can remember. I immediately made an interim directive where now they pay surcharges to the village for the usage of the uniform, the police car, and their work. And as a matter of fact, today we received the first checks. We should be turning him over to the village finance department tomorrow. So they are now paying surcharges for the use of the equipment, which wasn't being done before. FDM, Florida Department of Emergency Management, reimbursement for officers that were sent in reference to Hurricane Milton to the West Coast. We were never paid. We were never given the money back for that situation. So we immediately went ahead and started going, doing the audits and sending in all the paperwork for FDM. And we should be getting anywhere between $55,000 and $65,000 back soon. Fleet management overhaul. There was no control of the vehicles here. I don't know if you've noticed, but a lot of the police cars in this police department are unmarked. And that to me is a no-no. Police cars should be marked. The citizens should see these police cars driving around and not wonder, is that a cop or is that, somebody else? So we're working on that right now. The marking should be coming in pretty soon, and we'll be able to have all the police cars marked. We had some expired lease vehicles that we were paying for. We went ahead and took care of that too, making some changes there. A lot of payroll issues, discrepancies affecting full-time officers. Put it in protocols to prevent those things from occurring. We had a lot of misuse of funds purchasing things that we did not need. And I was able to negotiate one of those things back to one of the companies that sold us things and got a credit back to the city. Had to look at all the vendors' accounts when I saw that. And we resolved outstanding balances by securing proper documentation, processing backlogged payments. Several contracts are being renegotiated to secure more cost-effective agreements for the village, and so on. A lot of things that we use that were just not needed or not getting paid for. We did an evidence room reboot, which is probably the most important thing. We need to make sure that that a complete audit was done. We were able to do that, and everything is accounted for that should be in the evidence room. That is extremely important. We were able to hire, thanks to the manager, we were able to hire one full-time policeman for that one full-time opening that we had. Some past accounts were reinstated, which were offline for a long time. We were able to sell at auction 10 police vehicles that were taking up space over at the Public Works Department. We were able to sell those, and that money came back to the village also. The emergency preparedness is enhanced. We got all the emergency management type situations down packed. So if we do have an issue, we did some facility security upgrades. One, I'm going to have to bring to the manager because it's going to cost some money, but we need cameras. The cameras are broken. They're not working. Our DVR is not working. And that's important that we have that in the police station. One of the first things that I did, and I asked permission to do, was to promote a reserve officer who's been a police officer for 50 years and was a detective for 49 of those years to detective, because we had no detective to handle follow-up on calls, investigations. And we were able to do that, and now we have a wonderful detective that he's just awesome. I mean, he's great investigator. We had to do a lot of FDLE CJIS audits, and those are, when we run people out on the street, check them on the computer and stuff like that. The audits had not been done, so we got those audits done. We contacted Miami-Dade Sheriff's Office and updated all the radio communications, call signs, and everything else that needs to be done about every 6 months, more or less. You get people that you change in shifts, they're working different shifts, or people leave and you got new officers in. That wasn't done for a while. All the traffic radars were reconfigured and updated. And as far as job performance, since I have been here, the operational enforcement achievements have been: arrests are up by 146.15%. In 2024, there was 21. 2025, 45 arrests. Traffic citations up 139.39%. 2024, 495 citations. 2025, 1,185 citations. Written warnings increased by 5.2%. 270 warnings in 2024, 283 warnings in 2025. Criminal traffic summons rose by 208.33%. 2024, 20, and 2025, 67 summonses. Felony and misdemeanor arrest spiked. Felony arrests rose from 1 to 4 in April alone. Misdemeanor arrests doubled from 8 to 16 in May. Calls for service decreased by 20.6%. That's just in the last 3 months. Despite this reduction, overall enforcement and patrol productivity increased significantly. Community policing has increased by 38.55%. And those are watch orders and park and walks and, talking to the kids at the park and things like that. So in conclusion, in the last 3 months, Biscayne Park Police Department has resolved long-standing issues, introduced impactful reforms, and increased its overall enforcement presence and community involvement. These milestones reflect the department's strong leadership and commitment to transparency, accountability, and safety. Gentlemen, I haven't not had my first meeting with the department. I've done that on purpose because I don't know if I'm going to be made the chief or not. So on purpose, I have not brought them into this chambers to talk to them and tell them what I expect of them. Just my mere presence alone, you saw what the stats are like. So having said that, it's been a pleasure being here. I like the job here. I think this is a very well-kept secret, this village. And I think it's a wonderful place to work if we can just get to work.
Well, sir, thanks very much for the presentation. Snapshot of the department is certainly very helpful to see the directives and the objectives so far that you spearheaded. So I appreciate it. I thank you for your help with our department. I'm going to open this up for some questions from the commission for you. I don't want this to turn too much into an interview process. I know there's going to be an opportunity for the commission and the community to meet with you and the other candidates. I think July 19th, as the manager mentioned, and of course, anyone is free to reach out to you privately to talk further. But if there's a question that each commissioner would like to present at this time, I'd like to go ahead and give them that opportunity. I just have one question for you. You can answer it very quickly. How many years total have you served as the head of a department, be it chief or otherwise? Combined.
16 years.
16 years? Okay. When you were giving your resume, I just kind of wanted to put that number together.
2 years as a senior executive assistant, and then 9 years as a deputy chief, and then 4.5 years as a chief of police. And my boss is sitting right there, my ex-boss.
Well, thanks very much. I appreciate the presentation, and I'm going to go ahead and ask the commission if they have a question that they'd like to ask you before we move to the next candidate.
Captain Avila, I just want to say thank you for your presentation. Thank you for being here, and thank you for stepping into this role in our Biscayne Park's time of need. The change we've seen I've seen in the last 3 months really shows, and I just want to say thank you.
Thank you.
Just one quick question. If given this position, how long do you see yourself working here for us in the village?
Well, hopefully what's happened here before doesn't happen, and I'll be here for a long time. I'm sorry.
That's what I want to hear.
Just want to thank you for coming, and I've seen how you have operated the last 3 or 4 months. We had that discussion. We talked about it, and you have a very good reputation. And but you were chief once before. Why do you want to be? Why do you want to come to Biscayne Park and be our chief?
Well, like I said earlier, to me, it was a challenge. That's the same question my wife asked me.
But
You
she
want to
told
do
me-
this again? And yes, I had to think about it. And I think you all know why. So I don't even want to go into it
No.
again because I want to forgive and forget and
Right.
let's get moving forward. And yeah, there was a long thought process, and then I decided it's a challenge and I'm going to do it.
Okay. Again, thank you for being here.
Thank you very much. He's standing out there. I see him. Yeah, exactly. Got the glass cup.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Captain.
The floor is yours.
Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners, Village Attorney, Madam Clerk, and Mr. Manager, residents, thank you so much for affording me this opportunity to come here tonight, tell you a little bit about myself, perhaps answer questions, and tell you why I believe that I should be named the next chief of police for this great village. I was born in New York, raised on Long Island. Our dad was a military hero. He was a Bronze Star recipient in the Korean War. He raised us the right way. We learned compassion. We learned discipline. I always wanted to be a police officer. I went to Cortland State University in New York. I graduated with a degree in criminology. I came to Florida and was offered a job with the Fort Lauderdale Police Department, which began my 40-year journey in law enforcement. Can you hear me? Am I coming across okay?
Might want to try to speak into the mic a little bit better because anyone that's on Zoom can only hear you through
Testing,
that.
testing.
Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you.
And I started my 40-year journey on the Fort Lauderdale Police Department. I was blessed. Not many people could say this, but I married my best friend, and we had triplets. So I need the job more than anybody else, truly. As a Fort Lauderdale police officer, I graduated through the ranks. I got 5 promotions before I went on to North Bay Village, and I was named the chief of police at North Bay Village. I was also the chief of police for the city of Opelika, and I was the twice elected sheriff of Broward County. I'd like to go back to talking about promotions. I believe, with 40 years of police experience, Commissioner, that it is imperative that a man or a woman who are going to ascend to the rank of police chief rise through the ranks. At every different rank, you deal with different problems. You encounter different issues. As a sergeant, you're dealing with officers who come late to work, officers who don't show up to calls on time. As a mid-level executive, you're dealing with significant policy violations. And as a major, assistant chief, sheriff, you're dealing with the direction of the agency. You set the tone for what direction the agency goes. Everybody's a boss watcher, everybody. You lead by example. You encounter sensitive investigations that you can't believe you're dealing with. You're before the Dade County State Attorney's Office or the Broward County State Attorney's Office. You're hosting a meeting with the Florida Department of Law Enforcement or the FBI or the Drug Enforcement Administration. It is so critically important that men and women who become chiefs of police rise through the ranks and experience every problem and success that ranks have to offer. The most important aspect of any policing agency. Ladies and gentlemen, we tell ourselves that we exist to do many things, and we do. But in reality, Mayor, we exist for two reasons. One is to enhance the quality of life of the citizens we serve, and the second is to reduce crime. That's why police departments are created. You can only do these things through exemplary leadership. And in the FBI National Academy, and I have 3,000 hours of police training, and I am a graduate of the prestigious FBI National Academy. And up at the academy, you learn as a leader, when you're given directions, take a quick look behind you. If they're off to the right or they're off to the left, you're out for a walk. If you're the leader, they will follow you. They're not going to follow you down a criminal road or a road they shouldn't. And shame on them if they were. But leaders need to set the tone and lead by example. An army of sheep. Listen to this. An army of sheep led by a lion will always defeat an army of lion led by a sheep. That's why we have to be the best trained agency we could possibly be. I will bring stability. There hasn't been stability among the upper ranks at this agency for quite a while. I will bring stability. I will be here. I will give you a 5-year commitment. When I put in for this position, and I was honored to know that I was going to go to the next step, Commissioner Gonzalez, I had to come down here. I had to watch it right around the city. So I rode around, I drove. Some of you may have saw me out on my walks. I went to Burke Park and I spoke to residents. And I said to residents, what are you looking for from this police department? And there were 3 common denominators. One was visibility amongst police officers. Community has to have that. They have to know you care, and they only will think you care if they see you. The second thing is people said that they wanted traffic enforcement. And I'm a big believer in traffic enforcement because I know what traffic fatalities and how they come about. But I also believe, and I want you to remember me saying this if I'm blessed to get this position, I do believe in education before enforcement. We're not going to go out and sandbag citizens of our own community and put up a stop sign here or a stop sign there. In our magazines or our letters to the community, we'll let them know we're going to do a saturation checkpoint over here in the interest of total fairness. I'm going to ask officers, if you can give a warning, give a warning. I'm not a chief who's going to take back a ticket. That's corrupt. I don't take back tickets. I don't tell people, I'll tell our officers what to do and give them the job. But if they make a decision to arrest or unarrest, they'll have to deal with the consequences. But they're not going to have a police chief who's telling them, take back that ticket. You gave it to this person or that person. But we do want to educate, and we do want to make sure the public is aware of what we're trying to encounter. The other aspect of law enforcement that I think I bring to the table is I'm vetted. I'm battle tested. There's not a rank I haven't occupied or a special unit that I haven't worked for. I understand all aspects of the job. I'm not an expert, or maybe one or two, but I think me knowing I'm not an expert is what makes me a successful leader. I know I'm not the smartest person in the room. I shouldn't be the smartest person in the room. Sometimes we think because we're at a higher rank, we're going to tell the detective how to investigate. No, we're going to tell the detective, you have an investigation to do, but we're not going to tell him how to investigate. we would do the jobs ourselves. When I was also speaking, to the citizens were saying that another thing that they want to do is they want to know, they would all say, there's not a lot of crime in the village. There's not a lot of crime. We don't have to worry about crime. And you know what? They're right. There's not a lot of crime and we don't have to worry about crime until we do. Until we do. I could promise you, it's not something I like to say, but Murphy will visit. It just happens. The best laid plans. And we are going to be prepared. I'm a former SWAT commander. I understand tactics. I'm a former community policing commander. I understand how to gain trust in community and to partner with communities. Only through partnerships can we be successful. How do I know? I come here today and I hope you could see honor and truthfulness. I'm a humble person, but I come here saying, and it's not arrogance, that I know we'll be successful if I were given this job. How do I know? Because General Powell said that the best indicator to predict how a man or a woman will perform in the future is just to look at how they performed in the past. I've been a police leader since I'm 29 years old, and we've been abundantly successful. We've treated people with dignity and respect. We've put handcuffs on people. We use force only when necessary. A lot of people think that the police officer decides when to use force. Captain, you know that's not true. The community, the person you're trying to arrest, they decide how much force you're going to use. If they committed an axe murder and I say to them, you're under arrest, and they put hands behind their back, it's over. They're arrested. But if they're going to resist, there are times where we have to, use the lawful force, and we're going to be trained and ready to do that. And I'd like to segue into training, Mr. Mayor, if I may. Abraham Lincoln said, it was one of the most powerful quotes I took from the FBI National Academy. Abraham Lincoln said that if you told me I had to cut down a tree and you were going to give me 6 hours, most of us, including me, you'd say, okay, let's get out there, roll up your sleeves, and let's start chopping. Not Abraham Lincoln, not our 16th president. He said, if given 6 hours to cut down the tree, I'd spend the first 4 hours sharpening the axe. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to be well trained, and we're going to save money doing it. Because of my years in law enforcement and my connectivity, my contacts, if you will, there's not a chief of police in Dade County that I haven't worked with before. I've been a member of the Dade County Chiefs of Police. I've been a member of the Broward County Chiefs of Police. Larger agencies have a responsibility of taking care of smaller agencies. I did it when I was at BSO. I did it at Fort Lauderdale, and it was done to us and for us when we were at Opelika and North Bay. We're going to reach out to larger agencies and say, we'd like to be part of your mandatory refresher. Commissioner Huntington, when he was speaking with the fire chief today, talked about, are you going to have more equipment and what have you? We will have a finite budget. I know the manager is expecting a chief of police to stay within the budget, and I will. I managed an $18 million budget at North Bay and a $1 billion budget at the Broward Sheriff's Office. The principles of budgeting are the same. You spend on what you're allowed to spend on. If there's something that comes up, you meet with the manager, you tell your boss, here's what's happened. He makes a decision and you move forward. Sometimes it's yes, sometimes it's no. This village offers me the opportunity to build very real partnerships with all stakeholders, with the commission, with the manager, with the management's team, but most of all with the community. Our police department will be engaged with the community because I'll be engaged with the community. If you wake up on a Tuesday morning and you say, hey, I'd like to talk to the chief about something, you'll have a better chance of riding around the streets of this great village and spotting me than going to my office. I'm administratively responsible. I'll take care of all the administrative tasks I need to, but I'll be out in the community. That's where you connect with people. Police departments can't be successful without the community, and communities can't be successful without the police department. We're going to use our, the fact that we're blessed. We're going to use that to help other people. Two accomplishments, I'll be very brief that I wanted to talk to you about. And I think it's important. I think it tells you a lot about who I am. One is the civil citation program, and I'll be brief. It's a program where you could give juveniles tickets instead of arrests for misdemeanors. No guns, no violence, no knives. These are marijuana, graffiti, smaller crimes. Because of the work that I did up at the Broward Sheriff's Office, the state now elevated the amount of infractions a young kid could have from 1 to 3. There, but for the grace of God go I. So now we're giving kids other chances to get help with mental health issues, alcohol, drugs, anger management. The idea is we exist. Let's keep kids out of the schoolhouse to jailhouse pipeline. Let's measure our success by the kids we keep out of jail, not the kids we put in jail. But there are times people have to go to jail, and we're equipped to do that. For those of you who've ever experienced a paramilitary organization, a fire department, a police department, the military, I could tell you the Navy SEALs put it best. This is a quote from the Navy SEALs, and they say, "No plan survives first contact. No plan survives first contact." We have to be ready to have contingencies. We have to be ready to move in different directions. And at the same time, we need to be transparent. If a community member thinks a police officer made a mistake and did something wrong, and after we investigated, I disagreed with the manager's approval, I'd be right here in front of God and country telling you our men and women did everything the right way. Conversely, if they made a mistake, I'll be up here, responsibility on me. I'll telling you how we made the mistake and what we're doing to make sure it never happens again. The last thing I'll say about training is under pressure, a lot of people believe that under pressure, you rise to the occasion. Under pressure, Mr. Manager, you don't rise to the occasion. You sink to the level of your training. And that training level needs to be spot on so you could deal with the issues in hand. As a SWAT commander, there was a time in my life, this wasn't a good day, but there was a time in my life that I gave a direct order. I gave a direct order to a SWAT operator to take the life of a man so innocence could live. And without blinking an eye, it was Roger that. Do you know how the relationship that you have to build, that the kind of leader you need to be when you're telling an officer this person's life needs to be taken so innocence could live? Done. That's the type of leadership I'll provide. I'll be accountable. I'll be honest. When I was a sheriff of Broward County, I was a member of I was a member of a lot of organizations, but I was a member of one organization called the Shomrim Society. And in Hebrew, Shomrim means to watch over. I've been watching over our communities for 40 years. I've never had an ethical issue, an issue of honor. My record is as clean as could be. And I will hit the ground running. I'm battle tested. You give me the opportunity, you will be proud of the police department and proud of the work we do together. In closing, before I take any questions, if you'll allow, Mr. Mayor, as commissioners, vice mayor, mayor, village attorney, Madam Clerk, and Mr. Manager, thank you again for giving me the opportunity to come before you, speak to you, and let you know who I am. Thank you.
So thanks so much. I think your background is certainly impressive. Your achievements are the same, and they
Thank
speak for themselves.
Thank you, sir.
So I'm very appreciative of the service that you provided to our community at large here in Florida and elsewhere. So thank you very much for that. And you know, it's humbling to see that you are interested in bringing that down to us here in Biscayne Park.
Yes, sir.
So just very briefly, we're not doing too much of a back and forth here this evening because there is going to be an opportunity from what the manager said for yourself and the other candidates to meet with the community. I believe that's next Saturday. And then of course, always opportunities for people to speak with you privately and continue this conversation. But I'd like to have the commission present you with a question if they have one for you now.
Yes, sir.
So I will make mine very brief. And this may sound very obvious, but you've obviously served in very large cities with very large budgets. And, we know North Bay Village very well. They're much smaller too. So sounds like you've kind of run the gamut from large to small. So how do you, if you do at all, how do you adjust your approach, again, if you adjust your approach from a place like Broward Sheriff's Office to a place like Biscayne Park?
Well, all the agencies I've worked for, you don't really adjust your approach other than the Broward Sheriff's Office. The Broward Sheriff's Office it's a city. There are 6,000 men and women I worked with. After 7 years, I can't even say I met each and every one of them. So that was, that's not something, you would want to happen, but in a small community, where you ride around, when I rode around from 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock, I saw 40 people a night walking dogs up and down the street. So you have to, you don't go when you want to fish, you don't go where you want, you go where the tour guide tells you. If I know that dog walking time amongst our community, a community that I'm charged with serving, people are walking around from, we'll get a canine or we'll get a beagle or something like that, and I'll walk around and talk to people and find out information that way. So I'm malleable. I think the best leaders are the best listeners, and I know that problem solved. You and I, Mr. Mayor, if we were in a think tank solving a problem, most of the time, it's probably not going to be your solution or my solution. It's going to be a hybrid solution. And when you have, like I said before, leaders mold consensus. When you could bring people together and the principles of leadership are the same. And I know, and please don't take this as being arrogant, sir, I know I could be abundantly successful serving the village.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
So I'll go ahead and ask the commission if they have a question for you.
Again, thank you for coming.
Yes, sir.
My only thing is next week. I'm looking forward to see how the residents respond to you. You
Me
have a
too.
very good reputation from Broward County and all of that.
Mm.
So
Me-
I already know that, and I definitely would like to sit down and talk more with you about it. But I'm definitely looking forward to the community
Thank you,
participation.
Vice Mayor. I know it wasn't a question, but if I could just piggyback on what you said, up in Broward County, and I know we're in Dade County, and but up in Broward County, when I became sheriff, I took over a county where minority communities, Jewish communities, LGBTQ communities, African American communities, the Caribbean American communities had no relationship with the Broward County Sheriff. When I left, I think we received over our primary and general elections, we received about 2 million votes. And we received about 78% of the votes from the minority communities. So I know how to reach out and touch people that don't maybe, look like me or think like me. And you know what? We don't need to go to the same schools, and we don't need to go to the same churches, and we don't need to put our kids in the same baseball. But what we do need to do is, when on a mission, we need to be together and share the mission. So thank you for that.
Not too shabby for a former New Yorker. So only question that I have, well, I think this is an important question for our community. One of the things that has transpired in our police department was accreditation. We started the process, and for multiple reasons, we didn't go through to get accredited. So my question to you is, do you feel that that's an important thing to happen? And how would you go about that process?
Well, I've been part of 2 accreditation processes, so it's something, I'm a proponent of accreditation. I do. It's a very costly endeavor. So, like anything else, it comes down to dollars and cents. if, I would hope to have that conversation with the manager, and I would tell him, you know, what I thought of accreditation, who we would have to hire to be accredited. And then the manager would ultimately make a decision to move forward with. He'd say, Scott, move forward with it. Give me a, you know, a status update, or it's not something that the city or the village can financially handle at this particular point. And then I just say, you know, yes, sir, and move forward with whatever direction is. But to answer your question, I'm a proponent of the community respects a police department that is accredited.
Thank you, Mr. Israel, for being here today, and thank you
Yes,
for your
sir.
presentation. Your reputation precedes yourself. You come with a highly recommended. We had a chance to speak on the phone earlier, so I don't have a question for you. I just want to say thank you, and thank you for your extensive career here in Miami-Dade and Broward County. You know, I really respect you for what you've done for the
And
community.
thank you for putting your life on the line and for your service, sir. Appreciate you.
Well, thanks so much again for being here this evening. We very much appreciate your presentation and having an opportunity to interact with you. I'm sure we will interact a little bit more and certainly hopefully next Saturday too. So thank you so much and have a good
It's
evening.
great
and look forward
seeing
to
these
speaking with you.
faces, and I'm approachable. Come up to me on Saturday and ask the hard questions, the easy questions. I'll let the captain answer the hard questions, and I'll take the easy ones.
I think it is.
Right, sure.
I think so.
Pleasure to meet you. Thank you for being.
Yeah, next Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did I say this Saturday? Sorry. For anyone listening, I meant next Saturday. I've been called on it. My apologies. Thought I said next Saturday. I was close. Mr. Engel, good evening. Can you hear me?
I can, sir. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you this evening?
I'm doing awesome. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, you are our final candidate to provide a brief presentation to the commission and the community that are here this evening. So I will go ahead and give you the floor, and as soon as you finish, we'll address the kind of a brief Q&A session. Okay?
Yes, sir. First of all, I want to thank everybody for the opportunity to be here. Mayor, Vice Mayor, fellow commission members, and the community in general. My name is Dale Engel. I've been a law enforcement professional for over 30 years. I began my career in a small town in New Hampshire, just like the village, where we had a chief, 6 officers, and we relied greatly on part-time officers to supplement the full-time officers. I moved to Florida in 1998. I obtained a job with the town of Davie as a police officer. I spent 22 years there, rising through the ranks, holding every rank, ultimately retiring as the chief of police in September of 2020. I retired and got bored of being retired and went back to work. And I currently work for the Seminole Tribe of Florida, and I'm a lieutenant with their police department. Currently working on trying to get the tribe accredited through CALEA. I'm a family person. I have 4 daughters that I raised pretty much on my own, but that's kind of grounded me as an individual. But talking about my law enforcement career, in Davie, I began as a patrol officer. I worked the different shifts. And like I said, I was fortunate to rise through the ranks, being a supervisor over most of the units within the agency. Obviously, it's a larger agency than what the village is, but I always go back to my roots of starting my law enforcement career in New Hampshire. With Seminole, I've been able to get back down there and work with the boots on the ground and understand some of the difficulties that officers face today in law enforcement. I know you'd asked the fire chief about mental wellness. In Davie, that was a big part of what we did. We incorporated it into our in-service training, and we took it very seriously. At Seminole, like I said, currently I'm working on the accreditation of the agency. When I first got hired, I was a supervisor. I did some time on patrol, and ultimately they promoted me to a lieutenant, and I oversaw their investigations unit. And just recently, they put me into the role of rewriting their policies. That's about all I got.
Great. Well, thank you very much, both for the service that you provided to our communities, and thank you very much for being here this evening. So let me just explain very quickly the way that we've done this with the other two candidates, and we'll do the same here for you, is we're not doing too much of a Q&A back and forth right now because there's going to be an opportunity for each of the candidates to meet with our community next Saturday. And also, of course, plenty of opportunity for everyone to kind of reach out privately and ask any further questions and discuss anything with you that they like. So just in the spirit of kind of keeping this moving forward, what we're having each of the commissioners present you with at least one question that they'd like to ask you this evening. So in that respect, I'd just like to ask you, Mr. Engel, can you just kind of, I think, explain to us or describe for us a little bit about your leadership approach and your how you approach leading a department, being the head of a department, how you work with subordinates, and just kind of your style. If you could kind of encapsulate that for us, I would appreciate it.
No, I appreciate the question. I've read probably 50 books on leadership and management. I would describe my leadership style as situational. Every situation requires a different type of leader. There's times when you're going to be a dictator and you say, you need to do it now, you need to do it this way, because that's what the situation dictates. When I was in Davie, I oversaw the tactical team, and there's not a lot of time for debate. You have to make a decision and you have to act on it. But then there's other times where you need input from the people that you're leading. I have found that by including the people that or the stakeholders in your decision, in the decision process, it's easier to get their buy-in, getting consensus, getting feedback on what is needed to be accomplished, and then getting their buy-in obviously makes that mission a lot more easy. And then there's times where it's a combination of telling people, we need to get something done, and then seeking their feedback.
All right. Well, I very much appreciate that. Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to the commission.
Thank you.
Good evening. I want to thank you for coming and participating. Besides your years, what experience can you bring to this department?
Say that one more time, sir.
What experience, besides, your years in the department, what experience can you bring in this department that you think we need?
Well, when I came for the interview, I had the opportunity to meet with the 4 residents who were there, and in listening to some of their concerns, I think that you're looking for someone that's going to lead the people, that is going to be a strong leader, but not only just within the agency, but within the community itself. An agency like the village, I don't think you're looking for a chief that's going to sit at a desk and not interact with the community. I think it's important as a chief of police, especially in a smaller agency, that you're out there talking with the people. And I'll give you an example, and I probably should have said this after the first question. One of the things that we did in Davie was, or one of the things I did personally was asking people what we can do better. I think Davie was an incredible agency, but I think any place has the opportunity to improve. And I found that oftentimes it's asking maybe the newest person, what's your friends are working in a different agency? What are they doing in these circumstances that we can help improve? And it may be that small tidbit of information that you implement that makes the process that much better. So I think at the village, I think you need a leader that's going to be there for not just the officers out on the road, but with the community. It's that interaction, it's that relationship, and understanding what the community wants and needs. I routinely, as the chief in Davie, would attend homeowners association meetings. Every town event, I would be there and always be available for the community, because it's that feedback from them. What do they expect from their chief? And I pose that same question with the board during my interview, because it's important to get, it's not how, someone coming in from the outside, and I remember this every time we got a new chief in Davie, it's like, oh, well, we did it this way here and we did it this way. Well, how does the village want it done? Because that's what's important. It's not, I can bring some experience to implement some of the changes or ideas that these people have, but it's really, what is the community, what is the council or commission, what are they looking for in a chief of police? And it's that relationship and feedback from them that's going to make it better.
Okay, I know you have experience with other departments, but why do you want to come to Biscayne Park, and what's your plan as far as time that you're going to give us as being as chief? Because we've had in the past where we don't have a chief that lasts us a long time. So what is your game plan on that?
I'll tell you what, sir, I have twins that are 14 years old, so I have to work for another 5 years. So I plan on being in one place. I want to come to an agency where I have some solid input. Like I said, I currently work for the Seminole Tribe in their police department, and I'm in a position where I'm in a position now where I may have a little bit more input with the authoring of some of the policies, but giving the direction, sharing the experiences and education that I have in a small agency, I think is going to be invaluable. So I plan on being there for a while, if you'll have me, and help to continue to grow the agency. And I made a statement to the board. My goal is to make the village's police department something that the residents are proud of. And I think that that's the goal that any chief should have coming in.
Okay, again, I look forward to on July 19th when the residents, and we can talk a lot more then. Thank you again for coming.
Thank you very much, and I'll be there.
Well, Commissioner Samari asked you the question about the length of time that you see serving our community. But I was just going to ask, you're planning on attending the meet and greet, I'm assuming?
Yes, sir. I apologize, sir. I'm out of the state on a pre-planned family vacation, or I'd have been standing there tonight.
Got it. No problem. All right, great. So yeah, so I'll meet you then. Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Engel, for your presentation and for being here virtually with us tonight. I don't have any questions. I look forward to meeting you on the 19th and meeting you in person. I'll have some great questions for you then. I just want to say that you've demonstrated all I need to know with your ability to remain calm under pressure as a father of twins and a father of 4. You can definitely handle most things. So thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
All right, Mr. Engel. Well, thanks so much for being here and fielding some questions and providing some information. We're looking forward to speaking with you further and seeing you down here in the village in a week and a half.
I'll see you on the 19th, and I appreciate everybody's time and attention.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
So, Mr. Manager, before we move on from 5B, was there any other input we wanted to discuss before we wrap this item?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. All right. So having concluded 5B, that wraps up our presentations. Let's go ahead and move on to public comment. So we will start with folks here in the log cabin. Just as a reminder, our public comment requires name and address and is limited to 3 minutes. And after those here in the log cabin, we'll move on to Zoom. So thanks very much.
Hello, Judy Hamelberg, 1015 Northeast 116th Street. This week we lost a long-term resident of Biscayne Park, Dennis Murphy. When I first moved here in 1996, I lightly knew Dennis, but at that time he was renting the house that was adjacent to the Public Works property on 8th Court. When I got to know him better, I discovered that he not only was renting and then purchased that house, but that on our Public Works property, we were being run out of a beat-up old trailer and a storage shipping container box, and that there were no facilities for our employees of Public Works to use the bathroom or wash their hands. And Mr. Murphy he had an auxiliary building on the back of his property that he allowed our people to, for years and years and years, have bathroom facilities and hand washing facilities on his property because there was none at Public Works. He was a staple here in the park for any of those of you who got to know him. He was quite an interesting character with his stories. He was very, very animated and always involved in things around here. He was always willing to try to patch a roof instead of forcing people to get new roofs. And because he was roofing Murphy Roofs. And believe you are going to be voting on whether to waive or not the fees for the rental of the log cabin for his family. And I hope you will do that. As with every death, there are large expenses that go with it. His son just had a baby a few weeks ago. And I think that sometimes we need to do things for residents to make life a little bit easier. And I hope you will find it in your heart to waive the fee for the rental of the log cabin for the memorial service for Dennis. I got about 40 seconds left. As far as our police goes, I will be there on the 19th. I want you to remember, for us, integrity is a critical thing with our police officers and with our chief of police, because those without integrity have financially cost us dearly in this village. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Melanie Oliva, 590 Northeast 121st Street. I'll echo what Judy said. Actually, Dennis did our roof, and I'm really sorry to hear that. I also wanted to say that there's at least one resident who's been trying to get in on the Zoom since 6 o'clock, and she's getting a message that says that another meeting is going on. So I don't know why. And then I just want to talk about code enforcement. We've gotten 2 letters. We've gotten a letter every month now, or for 2 months, that code enforcement will be going around our area. So I don't know if that's unusual, but our neighbor who my husband Mike spoke about last time, he did get a warning for his roof. I don't know if you guys remember what Mike said, but these are kind of elderly neighbors, and they don't have a lot of money to keep up their house. So he was out on his roof cleaning it today with the pressure washer. I was watching nervously. So I just want to make sure that, I don't know, when we first moved here, it was not like this. It was not as heavy-handed with code enforcement. I'd like to see us go back to that. Thank you, guys.
Janie Anderson, 11905 Northeast 11th Place. First thing I want to do is thank Al, and I believe also David Caserta, for your roles in getting the $400,000 from the state for stormwater improvements. I mean, that is just so significant to happen this year. That is phenomenal. Agenda item, bear with me, 9G. That is critical, and I certainly urge this commission to approve that. That came from our last code compliance board meeting to abate what is a significant public safety, public nuisance issue that neighbors around that property have had to deal with. So I, again, very much urge you to approve that. Regarding Veronica's report, complaint, I'm not sure exactly what we'll call it. It's unfortunate she's got something on the agenda and she's not here to explain. First of all, I'm wondering why she's singling out one meeting, but also she references Resolution 2024-18 as requiring this lengthy list of places where meetings need to be noticed, except what's always been explained to us is that resolutions do not carry the same legal standing as ordinances. They're not laws. So I'm hoping somebody will kind of explain that. And, you know, it's just unfortunate she's not here, so I'm not really sure what her end game is.
Bob Anderson, 11905 Northeast 11th Place. I just want to thank our the board for going ahead and vetting the different candidates for the chief of police, and our chair that did an excellent job. It's like herding cats, but he kept us all under control. And I think we all learned a lot. and thank you.
Anyone else here in the log cabin? Going, nope. Go ahead.
Vicky, 528 Northeast, 121st Street. I was not going to talk, but I hear and I know Veronica is on vacation, and I actually asked her, if you don't need to log in because it's like 6 hours and she was not having Wi-Fi, don't do it. Okay, the only reason she put it in the agenda is because she was very worried about what the lawyer told her about that it was not informed to the rest of the community about the meeting where they're going to take place to choose a manager. I knew it, but and actually I was on vacation too that day and I reached out, but because my neighbor is on top, but the rest of the people didn't. And she started to receive a lot of emails and text messages of what happened, why we were not notified. I just want to make sure that you get it.
Okay. So thanks everyone here in the log cabin. We appreciate your time and your presence here this evening to provide us with comment. We'll go ahead and turn it over to anyone on Zoom. If there's anyone on Zoom that would like to address the commission public comment, please raise your hand. The clerk will unmute you. And the same rules apply for our Zoom participants as they do here in the log cabin for public comment. We have someone. We see you. The clerk's trying to ask you to unmute now.
Hi there. It's Veronica Oliveira. I am at 108th and Biscayne. And while I'm not a resident of the village any longer, I do keep in touch. So hi, everybody. It was a real pleasure hearing the presentations today, as well as the candidates for chief. So congrats on a really good group and their presentations. I read the agenda. I do keep up, like I said, and I did want to go on the record that I think that Veronica's commissioner report is really important. And I hope that you all give it the attention that it deserves. And that you take it seriously, and that there's some change affected regarding how business is conducted in the village with regard to notices and residents and, just the process and accountability. So it seemed important. So I wanted to say something tonight, and hope everything goes smoothly for you.
Commissioner, thanks for being with us. It's good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Okay. I don't think we have any more on Zoom. So at this time, we will close public comment. And I will ask if the commission has any reply that they'd like to offer to the to public comment at this time.
I will say, Judy, thank you for sharing that information about Dennis Murphy. That is sad to hear. I knew he was not well, but I didn't know he had passed. So thank you. I do extend my condolences to his family, and that's as a former customer of his as well. He became more like a friend to me, and he every time he passed, he stopped. We had conversations. It was a welcomed sight to see him in my front yard every day. So thank you.
Well, there's okay. Same point. I know that was going to be the manager was going to bring that up about the fee for the log cabin, but he was a special guy, Dennis Murphy, and he would often rib me about my roof constantly. So it was nice to see him out front. It was always good to have a conversation. So I was very sad to hear that he was not well and that he passed. So so we'll go ahead and we'll address that with the manager, I think, during your report, Mr. Manager. Okay, great. All right. Well, other than that, thanks everyone for providing comment. Thanks for being here. We appreciate you being part of our process, and we certainly like hearing from you. So thank you. So we'll go ahead and we'll move on from our commissioner reply to commissioner reports. Now, this is kind of a point of order on this. This is Commissioner Amsler's part of her report. I don't know that it was really noticed as a report or more of a discussion item, but I know that this is her item. It certainly warrants some discussion. I don't I would like her to be here for it. I don't want us to pass over it. Want us to recognize that there's, it's certainly worth being discussed, and it certainly brings up a salient issue. But I would like her to be part of that conversation with us. So having said that, is there any discussion points on her item tonight while she's not here? Maybe before we ask her to bring it back to us in August?
No, like I said, I agree 100%. I rather, it's a very important discussion. Sorry. It's a very important discussion item, and I would rather have the, the person that's bringing a discussion item here. So I don't think it's urgent enough that we have to do it tonight, but I definitely would like to have it as a discussion item. I think in August would be good.
Okay. Commissioners, anything you'd like to say on this item? Maybe we ask her to bring it back to us when she's with us?
Yeah, I think that's the prudent thing to do. And I think on a broader term, we need to talk a little bit more at some point about commissioner reports. Because, we seem to be putting reports in here that should be in discussion items instead of, reports, which was intended for us to talk about kind of what we've done, not to air grievances or discuss things. If we have a discussion item, it should be in the discussion item, so we can actually discuss it, because this is not a time for us to be discussing anything other than, our own things. So if Commissioner Hamsel's not here, she needs to discuss her item.
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah, I would agree that I think having her here would be vital. I will say that having prepared for this item to just have this discussion, I reviewed multiple different municipalities around, and I truly feel like we've over legislated ourselves. And I would support a discussion to redraft this resolution to get more in line with what other municipalities are doing. As one of the smallest municipalities in the county, having one of the largest requirements, it to me doesn't seem in line with fiscal, conservatism, and it's just not good policy. If we're not attaining it through this administration as well as the last, I think there needs to be a change, and I think the change comes from this dais, not from that building to my right.
I think that makes sense. And for Commissioner Amsler, when she inevitably watches the video, I do want you to know that that we recognize the importance of the item, but we would very much appreciate her presence here to discuss it with us, so we can kind of move it forward as we feel needed. And certainly to those that brought it up this evening here in the log cabin and on Zoom, we're not overlooking it. We'd like her to have her opinions on it. So I think with that, we'll move on from this point and ask that it be brought back. So having said that, are there any other commission reports from any other commissioners that we'd like to provide at this time, please?
Mine's is not more, I like your idea, what you're talking about, but a commission, where does a commissioner be able to comment on anything that he wants to comment? Isn't that done in reports?
I don't understand the question.
Well, if a commissioner wants to comment on things, he should be able to comment on it.
You can comment at any time, There's nobody tells you that you can't comment on anything at any given time. So the point of the commissioner report, right, is for us to bring kind of what we've done for the community or something that we're working on. It's not a place, in my humble opinion, I'm one of five, to bring up a list of things that perhaps need further discussion, because we're not going to discuss things during commissioner reports. We're going to discuss things when they're placed in discussion items. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, but there should be an area where a commissioner should be able to.
Yeah,
that's some stuff. And if you can put that in, I have no problem with you saying, if you can put that in the agenda where it says commission comments, fine, then I have no problem with that. But I as a commissioner,
just my
here's a perfect example. Tonight is not a.
Can we move on, please?
But tonight is not a commissioner report. It's something that I want to comment on, and so let me just basically say what it is. It's not a report. It's just if there's a spot on the agenda to where a commissioner can comment on things that he wants to come on, then I have no problem with it.
And you can do whatever you want. For now, and agree for something different.
What's going on in Texas, I was trying to figure out how the best way to express myself. So my sister helped me to write this poem, and I like to share it with the residents. In memory of the loved and lost. As a nation pauses, we gather in prayer for missing campers and loved ones everywhere. Our eyes are filled with tears and our hearts are breaking inside. Nevertheless, we're Texas strong. Families live are forever altered by downpour night. In shadows of sorrow, we seek our light. Who is the light of the world? There's only one, and after the rain comes S-O-N, not the sun, but the sun of the highest. The sun will shine again. Our spirits are still burdened by grief for youth full of dreams, now seeking much needed relief. Camp Mystic, a place of refuge, but now echoes with pain. Haunted by memories, a loss too hard to explain. Yet from the flood, like dew in the morning, we will rise again to reclaim the children's innocence and pain. United in strength, we carry their name. We mourn with the broken-hearted, we share in their tears. Bound by our kindness, we conquer our fears. Support for Texas, our love and resources we extend to families forever shattered with heartbreak and disbelief. May we learn on the holiest name, our hearts stand still with the indescribable grief and pain. May the laughter and children forever respond, echoed in our hearts where we true love is found. Camp Mystic was safe haven for many generations, now marked with despair, plagued by loss. Many of us, this loss is too great to bear. Although the flood may have taken many lives, like dew in the morning, still we rise. United in strength with hope in our eyes, we mourn with the shadow, we share their unbearable pain, still we rise. For we are brother and sister keepers through the joy and pain. Hold your head up, Texas. Texas was rise again. There was many stories that came out from this tragic in Texas that I would like to share. Two sisters that were found, that drowned, were holding hands. In Camp Mystic, there was over 750 children and adults combined. We lost 26. 5 are still children are missing, and 1 counselor. There was a lot of counselors that saved a lot of campers. One story was so amazing that a group of counselors had children on a 2-story rooftop. With the water rising, they started praying and singing. The water was almost to the 2nd floor when all of a sudden it stopped rising. Scott Buscan, an American hero who saved 165 lives in Texas floods. He was a member of the Coast Guard, and it was his first rescue he's done. There's been a lot more stories, and I just hope that everybody keeps in your prayers. And if it's in your heart to make a donation, you can make a donation to the Red Cross. But just continue to, Texas has helped us when we were in trouble during our hurricanes, and I just want us to keep an open mind. Thank you.
Thanks, Vice Mayor. Commissioner Gonzalez, do you have anything for your report? Commissioner Huntington?
Yes, I have one thing I want to share. I just want to thank the manager, Al, and our vendor for drain cleaning, A&A Drainage. They've done a great job over the last couple of months, completing 84 drains cleaned at this time. And I think between those and the ones we've identified that need to be cleaned when the vendor gets back from his summer vacation, we have over 100 drains identified in the village. I think it's the most comprehensive list of locations of drains this village has had in the last decade. So we really now know where they all are. Vast majority of them have been cleaned. I know the manager has intention to finish up that cleaning. So it's if David Raymond, if you're listening, we're moving forward. We're moving forward.
Great, thank you, Commissioner. I really only had the one item, but Janie beat me to it on the appropriations request. We received word last week, and I know notice went out from the manager to the commission and to our departments. I believe that that the governor signed the bill, and we were part of the appropriations request that was funded. So we received our just over $400,000 for our next phase of our drainage project. So that was very good news, especially considering last year we didn't get it. So it was good to hear and sorely needed for the improvement of our drainage plan. So that was really all I had. So I'm going to go ahead and move on to our reports. I know we have a couple of our department people here this evening with us. Our first report on our list at 8A is code compliance. I know Doreen is with us. We'll go to the manager first, she's saying. Okay. Mr. Manager, is anything on the code compliance report? Oh, I'm sorry. We're going with your report first.
Yeah, I think so.
Sorry about that.
Well, that's all right.
Go ahead, Mr. Manager.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, village commissioners. Thank you very much. Yeah, all the department reports are attached to the agenda, but just a couple of brief items that I wanted to talk about. One that was already mentioned this evening was Dennis Murphy, who was a longtime resident of the village and somebody that I would call a friend, passed away. I had sent out notice that he was in hospice, and then we got the news that he had passed. He knew my wife and I for a very long time. He had also replaced 2 roofs on my house. And every time he drove by my house, when I was out there working on the yard or be out, pulling in the driveway, he would stop and talk, and always had the opportunity to ask me about my kids, how their boys are, what are they doing, and he was just an outstanding gentleman, and a longtime member of the community, a business owner, and he actually had put on this roof 10 years ago, had replaced this roof that he was very, very proud about. And I had called him in when I had gotten the information that we had gotten a grant and we were looking to replace this roof, and he was giving me some advice on how to replace it. So his family is planning a celebration of life on July 19th here at the log cabin from 2 to 4 p.m. And everybody's invited, and I'm sure the community would like to come out and give their well wishes to the family at that time. So once again, it's July 19th from 2 to 4 p.m. We had talked about state appropriations. Our state lobbyist, David Caserta, has shared some great news with us last week. We were successful in requesting one of our capital improvement projects, which was a stormwater project, had made it to the Senate and then the House, and then when it was placed on the state budget, and then for $415,000. That just getting on the state budget is not an easy task. The governor then reviewed the budget and made some $800 million worth of budget cuts for the final budget, and a list was published of all the projects that were cut. In the years past, they published a list of the projects that were approved. This year, they published a list of the projects that were cut. So we were fortunate not to make that list of projects that were cut. I reviewed it like 3 or 4 times to make sure our name wasn't on it. So we were not cut. Unlike some of our neighboring cities, they were on that list. So I'd like to thank our state lobbyist, David Caserta, and our mayor, who traveled to Tallahassee on his own dime and on his own time and walked the halls of Tallahassee. And I know you learned a lot, Mayor, in the lobbying process. And also, one of the people they met up there while they were up there is Senator Ana Maria Rodriguez, who sponsored our appropriations on the Senate side. And she is a longtime friend. She's not in our district. She's not a senator from our district. And but she still sponsored our appropriations. So I had texted her when I found out, and I just would like to publicly thank her for doing this. And I know it's been a while since we've got any appropriations money for the village. So this was a really big win for us. Commissioner Huntington mentioned our stormwater drains. A&A Drainage had our approved vendor had just completed a list. I think it was like over 80 drains that the commissioner had indicated that we had gone ahead and cleaned. And the vendor's out of town this week, but we identified some others that were missed on the list. And we, with the help of Commissioner Huntington, who's in his daily walks or evening walks, he had identified the additional drains that we missed, and they're mostly on the north end of the village, and we're going to be cleaning those in the next couple weeks, and then we'll get out an LTC that has a final report on that whole process, that whole project. This evening, we had presentations from our 3 finalist candidates for the position of police chief. The chair of our selection committee, Mr. Howard Goldman, who's no longer in the room, was I'd just like to thank him, all his hard work, and also Bob Anderson, Joe Fischette, Trish Walker, and the former president of Dade Police Chiefs Association, and our police chief of Coral Gables. Those were the two police officers that were on the committee that provided some great insight into the process. The next step in the process is we're going to have a community meeting, a meet and greet at the Parks and Recreation Facility from 9:30 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. We'll be publicizing that. It's going to be on Saturday, July 19th. Give an opportunity for the community to come and meet the three candidates, have a one-on-one meeting with them during that hour, and have some coffee and donuts in a more relaxed atmosphere. And then I'll be getting input from the residents, this board, and then I'll be making the selection. The budget process, as you're aware, we're in the budget process is on the way. The finance director and I have been meeting with departments to formulate the draft budget. If any of the village commission members want to meet with a particular department to go over the draft budget prior to schedule workshops in August, please let me know. The finance director and myself will make ourselves available. The next scheduled date for the first budget meeting is July 17th at 6 p.m. That meeting will be for the millage and approving the resolution for the waste tax. Finally, there's two items that I need consensus on. The first is the Celebration of Life event on July 19th to waive the $1,400 application fee for the Murphy family. Mr. Mayor, I respectfully request a waiver of that fee if we have consensus.
Thank you, Mr. Manager, for your report. I know you're in the middle of it still. Brad, just a reminder, we have just consensus on this. We don't need a resolution to waive that fee, correct? Okay. I'd put it to commission then. I certainly have no problem waiving the fee, so I'd be looking for consensus from the commission at this time.
I have no problem.
I have no problem waiving it.
No problem at all.
You have your consensus to waive the fee, Mr. Manager. Thank you, Commissioners.
And then the final one is to seek consensus to begin the July 17th meeting at an hour earlier at 5 p.m. to consider just one item at that time, and that would be my employment agreement. My attorney has a trial that starts in August, and the 17th would just be more convenient for her to attend. And so, Mr. Mayor, I respectfully request that we have just meet an hour early at 5 p.m. on July 17th for that one item.
Just if I may.
Yeah, please.
My calendar. Is that a meeting?
That was the date by which, or the date on which we were setting the millage.
It's at 6 p.m. is the regular scheduled time meeting. Yeah.
You're saying your contract is on.
No, I'm asking that we meet 1 hour earlier, just to consider this, still have this scheduled meeting at 6 p.m. for the budget, but just meet 1 hour earlier to consider that, my employment agreement.
Are we able to do that, Brad?
You can hold the meeting. I can, if Mr. Mayor and Commission, if you want, I can give you a status of where we are. Mr. Childress's counsel had provided, I had some conversations with her. We talked over some parameters and what the process was going to look like. She provided me yesterday with a draft agreement.
Right.
I reviewed that this morning and did an underline and strike through of it and provided it back to her with not only underlined strike throughs, but obviously explanations as to why I might have struck through or proposed modifications. I sent that back to her. I'm trying to remember the day. The day's been pretty hectic, but I think sometime early afternoon, I sent that back to her. So clearly she probably has not had a time to review it at this point.
Okay.
We can put that on. I just don't know if we're going to be ready.
Well, then why don't we do this? Why don't we tentatively set it for 5 o'clock? So if we're ready, we can discuss it. But if we need additional time based on the back and forth and the red lines, then we can reconvene whenever we're prepared to do so. But if we put it on now, then it's
That's fine.
okay.
Fine. I misunderstood.
Providing a status update. Yeah.
asking for, so
Understood.
I'm just providing a status.
Okay, I appreciate that. So Mr. Manager, I certainly would have no problem, starting that meeting at 5 and tentatively setting the item for discussion, of course, on the condition that we're ready to do so. And, we can certainly discuss it at 5 o'clock at that time if we are ready.
And it's
We need
Ju-
to move
it's
it.
July or August? Just
July.
We have a meeting
I think that's next Thursday.
There was a special meeting at 6.
Special meeting at 6 o'clock on July 17 right now to set the millage. And what we're discussing is,
I know it should be, but it's not. I had that in August. I had that meeting. So that's why I was confused. All right, so I will make sure I update my calendar. I'll get that from the clerk and make sure I have it.
okay, great. Do we have a consensus from the commission to do what's been proposed, to tentatively set that item for discussion at 5 PM before we begin the millage discussion?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Anyone else?
Shouldn't the public be able to hear discussion on this contract?
It'll be a publicly noticed meeting, yeah. Is that a yes or a no? Okay, Commissioner Gonzalez?
Yes?
Yeah, it's a yes, as long as the public, give enough notice.
Well, it would have to be publicly noticed. The public would have to be present and be heard. It's not something we could do.
It will be publicly noticed and the public will have an opportunity to be there.
Do is I'll just set a 5 o'clock special meeting.
Right.
With that one item, because the other one has already been.
Yeah, it would have to be a
noticed.
separate special
Yeah,
meeting that you
It's
set.
the other one has already been noticed.
Perfect.
So you have to have a consensus, either the mayor on his own or 4 members of the commission have to approve scheduling of a session.
Okay. Commissioner Gonzalez?
I'm fine with it.
Okay. Consensus. All right, Mr. Manager, thank you. Mr. Attorney, thank you. And Madam Clerk, thank you. And thank you, Commissioners. So is there anything else, Mr. Manager, on your report?
Thank you very much.
Okay,
I
great.
just have a quick question for the manager. So, it seems like bad news flies through the air here in this village, the speed of bullets. So my question to you is, how are we getting all these wins, that great things that are happening, the appropriations, storm drains? How are we communicating that to the village? Because I honestly, other than the next door that he posted, I'm not seeing anything coming out of the village. So how are we communicating this to the village, or are we at all?
Right. So Commissioner, immediately when I find out, I send you an email.
Yeah.
And I let all of you know
Mhm.
so that you can tell your constituents the way that you would like to send out the message. And then I will do it as I just did, and during my monthly report, I'll announce it during my monthly report. So,
So the village is from the village though. The village is not.
I don't have Facebook. I'm not on Twitter.
Oh, we have a village has a Nextdoor account, correct?
No, we don't. No,
We
we
don't?
don't. We do not have a Nextdoor.
We have the app, right?
We have the app, yes.
And-
We
and
have
we
the app.
can
We
shoot
have
out-
GoGov app.
Communications through the app.
The GoGov app, if you want me to start doing that, I'll be happy to do that. But the GoGov app was to notify the special meetings, get the notice out. So I didn't want to use that for
Me personally, I think it would be a fantastic thing,
Okay.
to communicate. We have a grant for the roof here. We had somebody asking about, the shingles flying off and smacking them, just, we're not communicating the wins as fast as we communicate any losses. I brought this up a couple times before. I think that we have a communication issue in this village, but I think we need to come to a happy medium with our administration and what we can and cannot do. And I think that we're rapidly getting to the point where maybe a communications workshop is needed to sit down with the commission, administration, the public, and identify how we communicate, let it be known, and hold our administration accountable, but also hold ourselves accountable to the residents. When you say, hey, I didn't get an email, well, just speaking facetiously, we decided through the workshop, we're not doing that anymore. You say, no, we don't have email list, we can't use it anymore, we're using the app. So now the app.
I think that because there's been so much changeover in administrations, one administrator has an app, another administrator before had an email list, one before had something different, that there's a lot of confusion in this community as to how they're going to receive that information. And I think before you start fixing the wheel, we need to decide what that wheel is. What's our go-to and what are we going to hold? I think we need to make it simple. I think too many social medias is a bad idea. There's too much information. I think it should be one device, whatever we decide that is. And I think that realistically, we should sit down, have a workshop, discuss it with our administration, discuss it with the residents, and come to a happy medium going forward.
City manager. Yeah, I'm all in for that. My question, city manager, is about our website. How far we are on getting, because this is a lot of stuff that Commissioner Gonzalez is bringing up that can be put on our website. How long are we getting to fix this website? It's not your administration, it was the administration before and the administration before. I remember the last time I was on the commission, we approved the $12,000 to build the website, and we still haven't done it. It's still not done, fixed correctly. So when is that going to be updated?
So this past week I had met with the vendor that manages the website for El Portel, and I was briefing the mayor on this when we had met. And she has asked, I'm going to give her some ideas on what changes we would like to be made on the website, and then she's going to give me a estimate on what the cost would be for that.
Well, the past commission approved already 12,000, I think. If I'm wrong, I think it was $12,000 to build this website. So have we spent that money yet? I mean, it was passed.
Well, I think the messaging here, and I don't want to spend any more time on this right now. I think that messaging communication remains a problem. It's just something that we've tried to solve a number of different ways, a number of times, and nothing's quite stuck yet. So I think a workshop is a good idea on how we can kind of, similar to the workshop that we had for kind of fiscal directives and how we can all align with all of our departments to fix the issue. So I do think that's a good idea. I would certainly like to have Commissioner Amsler's input on this too, because I know that's something that's important to her. But I think a workshop is a great idea. Website, social medias, email lists. I mean, there's too many. I mean, I streamline things. Something is important and we need it. So I agree with you on that point. I think a workshop's a great idea. So I think we should probably try to set that when we have all five of us here. Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Manager, for your report. So if there's no other questions for the manager on his report at this time, I'd like to move on to our code department. Our code director is here, and just don't need you to present unless you have anything specific you'd like to present to us, or if there are any specific questions. So are there any questions for the code director on her report at this time?
No.
No, hearing none. Okay. Thank you very much, Doreen. Our finance report is next. I know Paul's not with us. Are there any questions on the finance report we'd like to bring up at this time from the commission? No, hearing none.
Nope.
No. Okay. Our police department report is next. Acting Chief Rosero is here with us. Is there anything you'd like to present as part of your report to the commission this evening, sir? Not at this time. Are there any questions for the acting chief on his report? Hearing none. Okay. Thank you very much for being here with us. Public Works is next. Are there any questions on the Public Works report? No, seeing none. Are there any other questions? I'm just going to do this all at once. Any other questions on any other reports from the commission at this time? Hearing none. Okay, great. All right. So let's go ahead and move on to our consent agenda, which is section 9. Do I have it? You know what? I'm sorry.
Mayor, if I may just.
Yeah, please.
So, and I guess I should have pulled this item, but I don't know that it's necessary. On 9H, if you're going to approve 9H as part of the consent agenda, we just need you to approve it as amended. The essential amendment is the project was identified as the Village Hall hardening project, in parentheses, log cabin restoration.
Okay.
Project name has been changed with the grantor.
Okay.
And it's changed now to the Biscayne Park Historical Log Cabin Hardening Project. So both the title of the resolution, the body of the resolution, and the any of the exhibits, the agreement, where it references Village Hall Hardening Project, we would amend that or ask that you, if approved, we amend that to the Biscayne Park Historical Log Cabin Hardening Project.
Understood.
I will make those amendments before it's executed.
All right, thank you, Brad. So, and before we do that too, I neglected to do this during additions, deletions, withdrawals, so my apologies. 9J, I didn't see the minutes attached to 9G, I'm sorry, yeah, 9J.
I had uploading issues this agenda.
Okay.
And I thought they were attached. I apologize.
Can we just bring that one back next
We
meeting?
can,
Right. So I apologize for the last minute amendment on it, but the consent agenda will be amended as identified by the attorney on the record as to 9H and to remove 9J because the backup isn't with it. So having said those two items, do I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as amended?
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second, okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. As amended, passed. Thank you all very much. All right, so having concluded section 9, our consent agenda, that brings us down to section 13, our discussion of new business, the only remaining item on there, which is the discussion of the parking project, which I believe Commissioner Huntington, did I read that incorrectly? No, my apologies.
That's fine. I'll take it. Well, me and the manager have had many discussions on this, on what, last time we discussed this project, we left it up in the air. We didn't provide great direction to the manager as to what we want to see done with it. We did have ESA conduct a study of parking that was a lot of the questions we had with our vendor as to how many parking spaces we would have, how many parking spaces do we need. The estimate of 75 that what we need was thrown out there. And I don't know if you guys remember reviewing the study that ESA did. The study did not show that. The study to me showed that we have a peak hour between 5 and 6 o'clock when there's pickup time for our school, after school program, soccer and things like that. I've had discussions with ESA about changing our schedule a little bit, if it's possible to change our schedule to accommodate for that peak. But that there's been information as far as how many cars we're parking per hour, and it's vastly under the 51 spaces or 52 spaces that are in the project. So as this project, the manager really didn't have a lot of direction from the commission as where he wants to go. I urged him to put this on as a discussion item. Did not see my name on there, sorry.
My apologies. I think that probably came from our meeting, so my apologies.
But I fully support it because I think we need to give the manager direction as to how he wants. It's permit ready, it's ready to go, and we either need to put it on the shelf like Biscayne Park always does, or put a shovel in the ground, which is what I would really like to see happen. So I'd open up the discussion as to what the commission wants to do, how we want to provide direction to our manager. And the floor is yours.
I appreciate that. I apologize for unfairly putting you on the spot to do that, but you did a great job. So, Mr. Manager, was there anything that you wanted to introduce on this item?
So my weekly meetings with Commissioner Gonzalez, he also brought this up, and he wanted to move this project along and was asking where it is and what the dollar amount for the project would be. And so I told him we would bring the consultant back and put it on the agenda for a discussion item. So
Okay, so my radar was entirely off. I should have been here, started there, and probably should have started with art. So, so thanks everyone. So then I guess the recommendation, I kind of agree with your assessment, Ryan, that this has been approved. This has been improved in the works for a very long time, and that's tends to happen with Biscayne Park. As these things get approved, we kind of get tied up with design and money and how things are going to be funded, and then they just kind of sit. So I'm glad that you all brought this back up. I do remember, Mr. Manager, that one of the very large kind of elephant in the room items with this was the increased cost.
Right.
It was some of them were upwards of 3 times what we originally were quoted, something like that.
So, Mr. Mayor, if I could, our consultant is in the room, and he's been waiting to talk. So, Mr. Matthew Polak, who's with the Chisholm Architect firm, and he's also the one that is going to be overseeing the roof that you just approved, that item to replace our roof. So it was good that we've had both these items on the agenda tonight. So
good timing.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here this evening, Mr. Polak, and I'll turn it over to you.
No problem. My name's Matt Polak, president of Chisholm Architects, 782 Lejeune Road. I wanted to thank you all for approving the move forward with the log cabin. And I am here to answer any of your questions with regards to the parking project. We did have a presentation, I think, earlier this year where we presented that. Did have a conversation with Mr. Childress earlier this week and also today, and talking about the budget. We did go back through our paperwork and we're looking at the budget. I'm not sure what what numbers were quoted to you all. We did reach out to our consultants, our civil engineers, to see if they could give us a ballpark figure. But in going back through the file, we saw that initially when the project was in the conceptual stage, the parking for the 51 parking spaces, just the parking alone, that number was coming in around $230,000 to do all four sides of the parking area. I would say that was 3 years ago, over 3 years ago. So there's been probably an a cost increase over those years that we're assuming probably somewhere between 8 or 9% is probably what's happened just because of where the market is. So that's probably pushing that number up into the $300 to $350 range and that's really without carrying any contingency on that. We also did, and then we went back and we looked at some of the other features that were added to this or were included in the scope of work. And we had the VITA course, which was a 7-station VITA course. Those are running, anywhere between $75,000 and $100,000, depending on ultimately the equipment you select, the number of stations. I think we had 7 stations in this design. And then you're talking, we had water fountains, which we need to plumb and install. And we had picnic tables, garbage cans, benches, bunch of other things that go in there. So, the pricing, just working on this, and we can always get back with Mr. Childress a little bit more time to drill down on it. But I think we were looking at our numbers coming in anywhere between $500,000 and $650,000 if you were to do all of those things. And I'm not sure how you all want to proceed forward on doing the work. Certainly some of those items could be phased in. The VITA track doesn't necessarily have to be done the same time the parking's done, or obviously some of the amenities and the park amenities could be brought in at, under a different budget or at a different time, or we could select something else a little bit, something different. But I think that's where the numbers were. I don't know if that syncs up with where you guys were on your numbers.
I was throwing out a multiplier is something that struck my eye. I do remember that when this came back to us several months ago, that there was an increase in cost, basically because it had been quoted out so long ago that just
right.
So sorry, I didn't want to interrupt.
No, that's good. That's why I'm here. I think there was, when Mr. Childress and I spoke, there was maybe a talk about phasing the plan. I didn't know if the phasing was something, just a concern with the neighbors on how the work would be done, or really a budget issue on how to maybe fund the project and to get, ultimately get to where you want to get to.
Well, I think that latter point is always going to be an issue that we need to consider when we're talking about these things. So I appreciate that. Let me just ask you this, and I'm going to do it kind of unfairly summarily. The proposal that we have before us obviously is the original proposal. The proposal that you just outlined that was
that's what's on the drawings right now. Yeah.
Correct. In the ballpark of 200 and
it was 230 just for the parking. That was what was in the original. That was done by another design firm. I don't take any question to the numbers that they did there, but they provided a number for doing the parking using the parallel parking idea scheme, protecting the trees, using asphalt paving and doing the trees. Now, what wasn't included in that 230 number was the VITA course, the water fountains, the benches, and then obviously the cost increases that have occurred since June of 2022. So that's the other thing that sort of has to be kind of budgeted in at this point.
So that, let's just put the number at 230 for sake of conversation. 230 was just for the parking.
Just for parking, that was for like 50 parking spaces, of which 51, but I think 6 of them were existing, but we're going to be repaved and restriped and
Understood.
new signs and all that.
And the increase in the cost that you've just communicated to us, that's just for the parking plan. That's not for the other items.
Well,
correct?
no, we went ahead and looked at the other items. I can't tell you where the picnic benches are being built. So like if they're built in China, like I could be off by 80%. I don't know. Who knows? We'll know in a week, in a month. But you know, those are obviously items that there's a different level of the type of picnic bench we want to use. And so there's a budget that I think we could probably work with there. That's not, and it's not a big number. You're maybe $15,000-$20,000 in picnic benches or something like that. But, you know, the big numbers are really, the Vita course is really where the big is, you know, the second biggest number next to the parking spaces.
So then to return to my unfair, summarily phrased question to you, in order to move forward with this project, hypothetically speaking, you would need to provide us with an updated quote and design and everything?
No, I think the way it's set up, I mean, and I think the 50 parking spaces is the number. And I agree, when we went back and looked at the data as well, that there are peaks. And obviously, if you can time the peaks a little bit better, then you can bring that, you know, you can bring your peak number down. So I think, and there were advantages to the parallel parking solution in that it protected, I think all of the trees were able to be protected. I think it's safer in the sense of cars aren't backing out onto the right of way. They're backing in, and, you know, so you can see people behind you, you can see cars coming. So it's a safer solution. So in that sense, I think you'd want to move forward with, and I think that was probably the method that, you know, the selected one with the asphalt paving and how it was chosen was probably the most affordable option of them all, which I think, you know, makes sense. But obviously the number has increased since 2022.
Certainly. So, and the reason that I asked that question, of course, is obviously because I think it's important that the commission sees kind of the level of service that we're talking about, the levels of service that we would be provided by providing just the parking, by adding the fountains, by adding the benches, by adding whatever, all the plus. So, you know, I certainly would feel more comfortable seeing something like that in more of a formal proposal.
Well, I think we could, Mr. Childress and I talked about it earlier today, is that what we think the best step forward is to get into permitting and get through the permit process and have a dry run set of drawings that are ready for a contractor to pull a permit for. And then at that point, I would put it out to bid. And that will have a big influence on how it gets priced as well, because obviously depending on, and I'll be honest, we've been working with you all for about a year and a half, but this would really be our first project that we'd be doing, you know, together from start to finish. Obviously, whatever requirements you all have in your bidding, you know, that's going to have an impact on the level and type of contractor that's going to bid this project. So obviously there are, you know, smaller paving companies that are going to probably give a better price than larger paving companies, but there may be insurance requirements or something that may prohibit that. So how it gets bid will have an impact on the price. But what I wanted to say is that the documents and the bid document can be, you know, put in a format so that, okay, give us a price for the paving and the parking, give us a price for the Vita course, give us a price for the equipment. And then that way you kind of, you could do it as an additive alternate where you would, you know, get A and then add B and then maybe add C, or do it as a deduct where you have the whole thing and you take out A, B, or C. However, you know, and that'd be something we'd probably have to just have some more discussions on to see how we'd want to do that.
Okay, so that information obviously would then come back to us because that's obviously going to exceed the manager's spending authority. So
Exactly.
that's where I was trying to get. So I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
I've been monopolizing your time, so I'm going to
problem.
go ahead and turn it over to the commission to see if they have any questions for you. Thanks so much.
Al, seeing as we've been talking about this for 3 years, Do we have money for this in the, or is this something that we're gonna have to talk about for the next budget?
We certainly don't have money in this year's budget for this, and you know.
So we've been
look-
talking about it for 3 years, but we haven't budgeted anything in the,
I
I guess we just figured we're just gonna keep.
Yeah, so
put it all-
the ARPA money is going to the stormwater project. You know,
Right.
you just, this evening, you just approved some expenditures for the ARPA money, but the remainder, amount will be going for the stormwater project.
Mhm.
And then we're also gonna have to, that $415,000 that we're getting from the state appropriations, we're gonna match that for another 415 or maybe even 500 to complete that project, that one stormwater project. So that's where their money is budgeted this year, Commissioner.
Okay, so this is something that we're gonna have to talk about for the upcoming year.
Yes, it's not something that we can break ground on next month or, you know.
So I'll be back.
I just don't want you to come back in 26 and 27 and then 28. I just prefer you just come back one more time and then we can move forward. Because this is just ridiculous.
So my question has to do with phasing. If we, obviously, I think a $500,000 project, the village could probably never do it all in one swoop. And with the Miami Country Day agreement pending, I don't think they would even appreciate us putting parking. They would have to go over to redo the field. So if we move forward with this project and decide to do it in phases, say the north side, south side, east, west, break it up that way, 4 phases, would something in these documents have to be changed, or that would be done at RFP process?
It's a good question. I think you could set up the, the drawing so that those, you would take those parking spaces and then just segregate those into, if it's 4 quadrants or 2 quadrants or however you would want to do that. I understand the budgetary impact that, you all are facing on that. So, I mean, the more parking you could get done at one time clearly is the best, part moving forward. I think everything else is more, has a little bit more leeway in how it gets addressed, but the parking is one of those things is every time you go back, this is not going to get any less expensive than it is, today. And I know you all understand that. So the more you could get done at one time, probably that would be the best way to do it, but it could be broken up in a way that at least you could bite off at what you could afford.
So now my question is the commission is, as he just said, this is never going to get cheaper. It's just going to get more expensive. We've already been talking about this for a number of years. We have a need in our park. Right now, our residents are not parking in a legal way that if they did that in their house, they could park. They're parking on dirt. If you parked on dirt in your house, Doreen would be out there to give you a violation. So she should be out there giving violations to the village right now because we're providing dirt parking. I would like to see that change. I would like to see us actually move forward with intent to complete this project, to direct the manager to find the money in subsequent fiscal years, next fiscal year, the year after, phase it through a couple fiscals, explore CIT, grant funding, things of that nature. I would also, just speak bluntly, would just right now take VitaCourse off the list because I think that would be underutilized. I don't see it as a need for the village. I see parking, I see benches, trash cans, water. It's really hot outside, water for canines, but VitaCourse, I would right now scratch $100,000 off the list. I would move forward with a parking in a phased approach and our benches and water fountains to follow. But I leave it to the commission what we want to give the manager intent for. Even if we put an RFP out today, with as many days as left in the fiscal, we're not breaking ground this fiscal. It's going to be next fiscal as it is. This is a perfect time to give intent to the manager because he's drafting his budget right now. To at least start working towards one phase next year, phase after that, and keep on going. If we never start, we're never going to finish. That's it.
I agree with that. Question I want to ask you, and we had this discussion. I didn't know anything about this. This ARPA money that's going back. You said, can we use that next year for this? Can't. Okay. Okay. I agree with you. I like we need to get this thing started. So let's try to find the money in the next budget to do this. At least in phase, the parking I think is the most important thing we need to do. So,
Yeah, Ryan, I agree with you. I mean, I think that we prioritize this. Obviously not this fiscal, so unfortunately the conversation doesn't go a whole lot further tonight for you, even though you're here with us and we appreciate that.
I guess my question would be I'm not really that good with government, but the next fiscal year, the next fiscal year it starts in October, November.
October 1, yeah.
Well, I mean, just from a timing perspective, though, anything, if there is, if you have money in the budget to have it permit ready
was just
in
gonna-
that, by the time the next fiscal year rolls around, and, Mr. Childress and I were talking about is that once you get through all those environmental issues and you know what it is, when you get the price, there aren't any surprises. That what tends to happen a lot of times is you'll get a price and then you'll go to permit, and then there'll be some comments that you didn't realize were going to come up, or some environmental issues that you didn't realize were there. And you end up, with a cost that you didn't anticipate. And once it's permit ready, it's ready.
yeah, that was the question I was going to ask you. Is it possible that we can do all the permitting and all the environmental stuff now? Because our permitting, takes time. And if we can get all that, as you say, get all this permitting approved, if he comes up with plans. I'm hoping I'm explaining that right. I think if we can get the permitting process completely done.
I think the first thing we've got to figure out is what's the cost of that too, because there's a cost associated with that. Well, what's the cost? Do we know what the cost is?
Well, so I think that we're past the threshold. I think, this is a cart before the horse sort of argument. I think it goes back to what Ryan mentioned, was that we provide direction to the manager of, let's figure out how we can phase this in an appropriate way that we can start tackling it and be ready. First of all, understanding the budget constraints that we have for the remainder of this fiscal. So if that means permitting is not going to work this year, then it's not going to work this year. But you'll if we're providing you the direction to do that, then you'll be able to let us know. And then further providing the direction to say, let's try to position this to get started as soon as we can in the new fiscal. Whether that be all the parking or whether that be 2 corners of the parking. I mean, whichever way makes the most sense. So I don't know if that's a clear enough direction to you, Al, to say that the commission is providing you with the direction and the authority to kind of plan to work on this project as a priority to start as soon as we are able in the new fiscal. Does that make sense?
Mr. Mayor, if you recall, we had a strategic planning session. We had 2 days of strategic planning. And during those 2 days, we talked about the major projects that you wanted to see funded. And those were this roof. You talked about paving this street, we're working on that. You talked about the Public Works building, putting a new roof on that Public Works building. You talked about the stormwater projects, which we got appropriations for. We're working on those. I think I don't think we mentioned the Ed Burke parking project. I don't think that was a priority for you at that time when we met. If that's a priority now, we'll go back and look at it and see what, how we can work it into the budget for the upcoming year. But those are the projects I'm working on right now. After I had gotten direction at strategic planning, those are the projects we're working on and trying to fund those also. But this project here, this is another 200,000. It's a matching grant. So it's going to be another $200,000 that the city has to put out for that project.
For what?
For the roof. It's
$100,000 for the
It's a
roof?
$178,000 grant that we have to match, yes.
So we're not going to build a whole brand new log cabin.
No, but we're putting ADA.
Oh, okay. So that's what okay.
ADA.
Yeah,
we're
okay.
doing some other things. Yes.
I was going to mention.
That one's been on the list for a long time.
I was going to mention that, the ADA thing here for the, so that's included in that.
How about this then? What about having the commission ask the manager to provide us with a better understanding of the cost of, so look at it this way maybe, and correct me if I'm wrong, commission. We've identified the priorities that you've just repeated to us, but if we ask you to put together an understanding or an idea or an understanding of what it would cost to do this, so let's just say hypothetically speaking, we can do 2 corners of the parking for, I don't know, 100,000. And if that's a lower cost and it's more attainable versus one of these other projects, then maybe we bump that up in priority. But I don't know that we know that until we know what the cost is. So maybe we can
is the first piece. First piece.
Right. So understanding the cost and maybe being able from that metric rearrange where our priorities lie because of the more attainable costs of one over the other, if that makes sense. I may just be talking in circles, and please let me know if I am. But maybe with a better understanding of what this would cost to get it started, maybe that would better position us to rearrange our priorities if we determine that to be pragmatic. Would that make sense? I don't want to overload the number of projects that you're working on. I know you've already told us that you're working on several projects as it is. But does asking you to do those things to give us a better understanding of what it would cost to get this started, is that too much of a lift?
If you're saying this evening that this is now our priority for us, you know,
I don't know that we're saying it is. I think we're saying we don't know that I don't know that it is. But I don't know that we can make that determination.
I don't think we're saying that it's our number one priority. I think we're saying it's added to the list. If it's added to the bottom of the list you just identified, I think that's okay. But as long as we're moving with intent to the finish line, whether that's, takes 2 fiscals, 3 fiscals, 4, I think that this commission would be fine with that as long as we're moving forward. I think we have intent to move forward, but I think we're not telling you to go break ground tomorrow. We're telling you to move with intent to a finish line. If that, I think we'll be understanding with our fiscal constraints. If that takes 2 fiscals or 3, that we're okay with that as long as we are moving forward.
I think starting with the permitting will make us actually go forward. And, if we do try to get a price on what the permitting, get all of that out of the way, that we're going to say, oh, we spent money on a permitting, so now we're going to have to go forward with it. It'll actually push us, because I agree with you. This has been dragging on too long.
Sorry, finish.
I think if you could find the income, how much it will cost to do the permitting and see if we can fit that into the budget, at least get that out of the way.
So do we have an understanding, maybe ballpark, of what it would cost to pull permits for this sort of project so we could go to bid?
It's a good, again, another good question. It's going to depend on the final scope, because I think if you're sticking with just the paving, I would say if we carry 2 or 3% of whatever that construction cost is estimated at, is probably a good fee. When you start getting into the water fountains and water meters and all that, then things start to get a little weird. But if we keep it to just regular civil site work, I don't think the fees are too much. And again, the fees really only, you have some upfront fees to pay for the review, but you're not really pulling the fee itself until you actually are ready to put a shovel in the ground and you have a general contractor ready to obtain that permit. So you could go through the dry run permit, and I would say that number is going to be relatively small. And I could get back to Mr. Childress on, do a couple phone calls in the morning, tell you what that would be, but it wouldn't be very much.
If it's going to be 2 to 3%, it's going to be above the manager's spending authority anyway. So it's going to have to come back to us as it is.
Yeah, but that's 2 or 3% at time of what time of when you're ready to go to construction. And that 2 or 3% would probably already be built into your final construction costs. It would be a soft cost added in to the final cost that when it comes forward to you guys to approve it. The upfront fees, I think, are going to be significantly less than that.
So then maybe I'm just trying to get us a starting point.
No, I'm with you. So am I.
It's all important. So maybe then the starting point here is to ask you to speak with the manager and come to an understanding of what it would, this is step 1, right? The permit. So come to an understanding of what it's going to cost us with these upfront fees on the permits to even go forward to do a phased approach. Because if we don't know what that costs, or if we find out, I know you're saying it's not 2 to 3%, but I'm just saying, hypothetically speaking, if we find out it's going to cost us $20,000, then maybe we pump the brakes until next fiscal. I do want to move it forward with some intent, and I agree with you on that point. But I think we need to have an understanding of what that cost is going to be, because I don't want us to just blindly say, just go ahead and do it. And then all of a sudden we got to wait because, we got to wait until, I don't know what, November, or maybe it's outside of our, fiscal abilities next fiscal as it is entirely. So there's a lot of unknowns here. And I think we, in order to give some better direction, I think we need to have a dollar in front of us. So would we be, is that something commission would be in agreement on, to ask these 2 gentlemen to get together and talk about what it would cost to do the permits to even get us to bid?
Yes. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, definitely. I want us to get going here.
Sound good?
And that's without the Vita course. So
right across the.
Yeah, I think that's probably, I certainly agree with that
Yeah,
point.
yeah.
That's more of an add-on towards the back end
Yeah,
of this.
yeah, yeah.
So I think the parking is certainly the most important. I agree with that point. So maybe that would be the direction that we would provide here to kind of get us started and move this thing forward in some intentional way. Does that sound good?
Yeah, I think from what I'm hearing, there's consensus that the vital course is not a major part of the project, and that's something. Yeah,
There we go.
yeah. But yeah, Commissioner Huntington also has asked about replacing many of our recreation equipment at the parks and then it's outdated. So we're looking at grants, and we could see what other grants are out there for if there's any grants for a parking project for Parks and Recreation or anything like that, or
This is, I know, a conversation for a later month, but does this type of project, it's not technically recreation through FERDAP, but it's around a recreation.
it's around
center.
recreation.
Just
we could
as
see.
of clarity, FERDAP has not happening this year. They it was not funded in the state budget, so there will be no FERDAP grant for this year.
Right. Good point. Okay, then never mind. Forget I said anything.
But as we're talking about, Mr. Manager, would this qualify under CIT funds? Would be able to utilize CIT funds for this?
No, I don't think so. I don't think it would. It's I'll double check, but I don't think it will be. But I'll double check.
Then returning to your point of finding some potential alternative paths to funding while looking at the permitting costs to get us started so we can make some progress, because I agree with the commission on that progress is important on this item. It's been outstanding for far too long. So if we're clear on the direction on that point, I think that wraps up that discussion item. We very much appreciate you being here to answer questions.
Thank you.
Thank
guys
you.
have
We're
a
looking
great evening.
forward to hearing more from you on the project. Thank you very much. So if there's nothing further, that was our only discussion item for this evening. If there's nothing else, we'll request the items that we've rolled to be placed on next month's agenda. We'll be getting together again on the 17th, beginning at 5 p.m. And having said that, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thanks, everyone. Have a good evening.